The biggest fundamental difference between individuals on the right and individuals on the left is what they think are the cause of the present problems. Individuals who tend to be on the left think institutions, both historically and presently, are the reasons for economic, educational, financial, and other forms of disparities. Therefore, the institutions need to be reformed. We need people in government who can increase the help of the state. People on the left tend to think it is individuals who are the reasons for disparities. Therefore, they want more freedom and less government. But what is a system? If you really want to understand the banking system, you've got to look at individuals involved in that system, presently and historically. Individuals make up a system. A system is always going to have flaws as long as it contains flesh and blood humans. The Gallup poll that came out recently stated that only 41% of individuals trust the media. That's a lower approval rating than the president currently has. Only 28% strongly trust the media. Why is that? There are many reasons, but first we have to look at individuals involved in the institution. If you look at a lot of people involved in these institutions, you look at their backgrounds, a lot of them do not have any real world work experience. A lot of them went to school for journalism. They were interns at certain news organizations before moving up the ladder. I don't know about you, I'm only 27, but I don't know any 18-year-old kid who I really want to inform me about anything. At 18, I was damn near stupid. But you grow as a person, you go to the real world, you gain experience, you gain knowledge, you gain wisdom, and then you can educate people on certain topics. Think about the arrogance that you, as an individual with no private sector or military accomplishments, can then tell other people what to think. You first got to look into the psychology of it all. But to make matters worse, a lot of these individuals worked for candidates, but they claim they are news organizations. They're not news anchors, they're commentators. If somebody would just admit that they lean towards the left or towards the right, they could give their opinion and comment. That's what you call a commentator. A news anchor is somebody who would be like Walter Cronkite, that would just give you the news without putting their opinion into the news. But people like George Stephanopoulos, who worked for the Clintons, people like Chuck Todd, who worked for a Democrat, Jake Tapper worked for a Democrat, and again, it's America. You're free to work for who you want to work for, but don't say you're a news anchor. And if you work for a certain candidate, you're going to be biased towards that particular side, which is fine. Just admit you're a commentator for that particular party. Furthermore, in that poll, the Gallup poll, 61% of Americans believe the news do not tell you important stories. That's where you get into what I like to call pseudo events. Events that do not have any impact over your life, that do not really matter. What will happen is you'll have a press conference where the president will get in a confrontation with somebody like Jim Acosta, and then Jim Acosta becomes the story. It's not the job of a news anchor to be the story. It's the job of a news anchor to ask questions. What's the purpose of a press briefing? It's so the press can ask questions that the public cannot ask, and we can get answers on COVID, answers on stimulus checks, things that affect our lives legislatively. When a news anchor becomes the story, they are no longer doing their job. Considering all of the technology we have, mainstream journalists are becoming obsolete. The best journalists are the people in that particular area. For instance, if you want to see real world information, real-time information about, let's say, the riots in Louisville, Kentucky, you can go to YouTube, Facebook, and other platforms, look at individuals who live in those communities, who are the closest to those events, who go out and film the things taking place. You don't have that anymore. You used to have the citizen journalist who would go to a certain place, knock on doors, but instead they sat in their news studios. Logically speaking, who's going to have better information? George from Louisville, just giving you a random name here, who is actually recording the riots, who lives in that community, or fake Tapper sitting in his air-conditioned news studio all the way in New York City. Another thing about them is they are very isolated from the public. New York City and Washington, D.C. are completely different compared to a lot of the country. They look at places in the South, like where I live, and places in the Rust Belt as flyover states. They just fly over them and forget about them. They don't know the real issues we face. Like a lot of people I know, like him or hate him, voted for Trump because a lot of these factory jobs, these manufacturing jobs, are leaving. Our economy is 79% service jobs, according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics. We used to have an economy that was primarily manufacturing. Has he done a good job of that? I can't say. But the point I'm making is, instead of going to these individuals directly, knocking on their doors in Ohio, Michigan, Pennsylvania, asking them, who are you voting for and why, they just would put us all into one category and basically say that we are racist, sexist, homophobic. It's easy to say when you've went to journalism school, you've never worked in a factory, you've never served in the military, you've never had a business. It's easy to say that because you're not affected by NAFTA. You're not affected by GATT. And Bernie Sanders, give him credit. He brought up some of those same economic issues. But the media totally dismissed Bernie Sanders. They never gave him the time of day. They never interviewed him. They never showed anything he had to say. That's the problem. They're totally disconnected from the people. But then people say, what about local news? Well, the problem is, and I say this quite often because it's the truth, ever since the 1996 Telecommunications Act, 6 corporations bought up the smaller independent companies and they own everything. For instance, my local news has really gone to the shitter. I used to like it a couple of years ago. I used to watch it. I used to really enjoy it. It was good journalism, but it's owned by Comcast, who owns NBC. So they regurgitate mainstream media talking points. Oh, COVID-19, Trump is terrible, Biden's ahead in the polls, just anything you could find on NBC. And it's like, if I wanted to hear that shit, I'd turn on Molester Holt. But no one under the age of 55 watches him. And the people who are over the age of 55 are asleep when they watch him. But you get the point I'm making. I'm making that local news should be about local events in your community. It should not be about the president. We have national news for that. That's why I think we should make it illegal for one company to own too much stuff. That's how you get monopolies like Standard Oil, U.S. Steel, things like that. You need smaller competitors who can compete in the marketplace. Smaller local news who have good reporting. But we don't get that anymore because these companies own it all. Another thing is the primary way that they fund their operation. The best commodity you can get today is attention. If somebody is scrolling through their Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, or internet feed, you want them to click on your news story. So the first thing is, it's not about being right, it's about being first. If you can break a story, then you can get the most clicks, the most advertising revenue. That's why it really pissed me off during the Kobe Bryant situation. Ethics no longer matter. Before Vanessa and the families were informed about Kobe's death in the helicopter crash, you had the media cite National Enquirer break the story online. I remember I saw it on my Twitter feed and I was like, no way. So I turned on ESPN, I turned on ABC News, I tried to look for another news source and I couldn't find it. It's because they were informing the families ethics no longer matter. What matters is being first. Also, another way to get people to click on your news story is to make it something that is polarizing, which is pseudo events. Saying that Trump said something racist during the rally, when you don't show the context, you don't show the entire speech, and you edit and select clips, copy and paste clips to make it sound the way you want it to sound, then you can get a different perception. I'll give you an example. It's not even about Trump, but it's just they're totally dishonest. You can have reasonable criticisms of him. He's printed a shit ton of money. He needs to stop tweeting a lot. He's pushing the vaccinations, but those are legitimate criticisms. But do you want to literally be lied to, or do you want to be treated honestly? There was a time I remember where he said the American dream is dead. And he said, but I can bring it back bigger and better than ever before. But you had an article on CNN that says Trump says American dream is dead. People clicked on it and they just showed the clip, the American dream is dead. Boom, people saw that. He says American dream is dead. Orange man bad. If there's an actual legitimate good article, and I'll give credit when credit is due, there was an article from Public Broadcasting Station, PBS. Rarely it said, since the TARP bailout money, which was the money that Bush and Obama signed to the bankers after the 2008 housing crash, it said since the TARP bailout, the big banks are loaning less money. But it didn't have a lot of clicks. Who's going to click on that? I mean, I did. I thought it was a good piece. But your average person is not going to look for that. Your average person is going to look at, Trump says this. AOC says this. It's even AOC, like, she says stupid stuff all the time. It's like, is that a news story? AOC says something stupid. And that's what they show. Over and over and over and over. You have real world issues going on, but that's all they show. That's why the best thing to do, as I always state, is boycott it. Anytime you see an article that has a clickbait headline, don't click on it because you're incentivizing the individuals responsible for this environment to keep doing it. You're giving them advertising revenue. To conclude, if you really want to see what is emblematic of why people like me, we don't just dislike the media, we don't just not trust the media, but we think they are the enemy of the people. Look at the Covington kid. Again, I'm not even saying you have to like him or Trump, but these are literally lies, whether you like them or not. They're literally lies. The Covington kid was accused of being a racist. He got death threats online. He had all these people thinking he was the biggest piece of crap in the world, all because of the media. He ended up suing the hell out of CNN and getting a big lawsuit in the Washington Post for an undisclosed amount, but he's a millionaire now. The point I'm making is, though, when you disagree with them, it's not just you disagree with their agenda, therefore they must delegitimize your points of view, and that's how debate arguments work. That's understandable. They want you destroyed. They want you smeared. They want you canceled. They want to take away your money. They want you accused of being a racist. Like, they want to completely and utterly destroy you and your family. And then they wonder why people like me hate them. They're really shocked why people chant CNN sucks. They're really shocked that when they're on the street, people curse them out. We hate them. It is what it is. And people always say, well, if we just get better anchors, it doesn't matter about anchors. They're just placeholders. They're obsolete. They don't have an original thought. They just are told what to say from the executives. Look at the Project Veritas videos where Jeff Zucker told everybody to talk about impeachment. When other things were happening, talk about impeachment, talk about impeachment. That's all. All they do is read off a teleprompter. All they do is regurgitate what they're told to say. They're talking parrots. They're not super intellectual. They're not super smart. That's why they're replaceable. We need to repeal and replace the 1996 Telecommunications Act. We need to make it illegal for these large corporations to own everything. We need more local, good news reporting. And let the marketplace of ideas win. Also, we need to restructure cable packages where you can purchase what you want. I shouldn't be forced, if I want to watch college football or basketball, to fund CNN, to fund NBC, to fund Fox News. I shouldn't be forced to pay for news channels I don't watch. And that's because of the Cable Act that was signed in the 80s during the Reagan administration. I'm not blaming him for it. Just like Bill Clinton signed the Telecommunications Act, but the Republicans voted for it too. Both parties are shams, as everybody knows. But the point I'm making is we need real legislative work being done in order to improve journalism. You go about it the way you want to go about it, but the way I go about it is I don't buy anything from their sponsors. I look up their largest sponsors and I boycott them if I can, if it is possible. That's how you hurt them. You look at how their revenue stream works. They want to do that to us. Think about it. When they see someone as conservative, they want to destroy, like Goya, for instance. They want to destroy Goya. They want to destroy the man. They want to destroy his family. They want to cut off his money. So I say, fight fire with fire. Find out their advertisers. Quit buying from them. Cut them off. Progressive. Pfizer. That's two of their largest advertisers. Don't purchase anything from them. Boycott them. Cut them off. And let them see how they feel. The biggest thing that I think is funny, though, is when you get somebody like Jimmy Kimmel, who is supposedly woke now, but he has to apologize for blackface, or Ellen DeGeneres, that bitch, tries to act like she's so nice and likable, but she is a horrible cunt to the people that work for her. And now, after virtue signaling about how bad Trump is and how bad we are, she now has to apologize and everything like that. I love it. Like, if somebody's as a nice person and they get screwed over by cancel culture, I genuinely feel bad for them. But if somebody goes along with it, like Sarah Silverman, and then they dig up something in her past and then she's forced to apologize, I revel in it. It's like making someone wallow in their own shit. It's just funny to see. And I joked around on a post of Jimmy Kimmel. I said, I rarely comment on Facebook, but I said, he needs to be canceled. He needs to be hung. He needs to be totally castigated. That's what would happen if it was a conservative. Look at Roseanne Barr. I'm not even a fan of Roseanne Barr, but look at what happened to her compared to Jimmy Kimmel. But Jimmy Kimmel, you are a victim of the system you have created. And by the way, you're not funny.